All right, welcome to the last part of our notes for the histology unit. And here we're going to circle back to epithelial tissue for the last little bit and talk about the four main membranes that are formed by epithelial tissue. We talked about the tissues in general. Now I want to talk about their larger structures that some of them form. So there's four main membranes that we're going to look at here. So the body membranes. There are cutaneous, mucous, serous, and synovial. And we'll look at each one of those in turn. The cutaneous membrane is basically our skin. It's on the outside. It's the only dry membrane. It's the only one that's like constantly dry on its apical surface. Its basal surface is attached to moist things underneath, areolar tissue, etc. Its main job is protection, keeping uh, good stuff in, moisture, and that stuff, keeping the bad stuff out, sticks, stones, bugs, viruses, bacteria, um, and that's what it does. It has a few other functions. We'll talk about that. Our next unit is on the integumentary system, but as far as the epithelium goes, that outer layer of the skin is our cutaneous membrane. Next one I want to talk about, the mucous membrane. I've mentioned this a few times throughout the notes earlier, but it is what lines the body cavities that are open to the exterior and often produces mucus. Not all parts produce mucus, but a good chunk of it does, which is why it's called mucous membranes. So we'll see it lining the digestive tract all the way from mouth to anus. We'll see it lining the respiratory tract. Also, the reproductive tract is lined with mucous membranes. And those are all open to the exterior. Materials can get into those spaces without having to pass a membrane or go across tissues. So you can, stick a tube down somebody's nose to take a look in their stomach or to look in their lungs, right? Doctors will do that. You could actually, if you wanted to, literally stick a sterile rope in your mouth, weave it all the way through everything, including your intestines, which would be hard to do. You'd have to have quite the machinery to make that happen, and out your anus, and you could actually like pull on both ends of that rope because they would be attached. They wouldn't have had to cross any barriers. It would probably chafe the heck out of your intestines, but you could do it because it is technically outside the body. Okay, even though it's inside this or outside my body. Okay, outside the body proper anyway. Okay, next, and their job is absorption and secretion. So obviously, it's where your body connects to the outside world. So you need to absorb things you need to bring into your body and secrete things you need to get out of your body. Serous membranes. These are moist membranes found in the closed ventral body cavity. Where is your ventral body cavity? Yes, that is your thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities, right? This front part of your body where all your guts are. Okay. And they function to separate and lubricate. Okay. All of these organs in here are moving. Your heart's beating at around 70 beats a minute on average for its lifetimes. The lungs are going in and out, maybe 20 times an hour, or 20 times an hour, 20 times a minute. Your stomach is churning and squishing the food, and your intestines are squeezing it through with peristalsis all the way out until it comes out the other end. So it's constantly moving in there, which means if your heart and your lungs were constantly moving next to each other without anything to separate them and to lubricate them, like oil in an engine where you got moving parts all the time, they're eventually going to wear out, and you'll literally wear a hole into the heart or the lungs. So you need to have a tough membrane that can separate those organs that are moving, and you want a lubricating fluid surrounding those organs so they can move relatively friction free. And that's what serous membrane does for us. Serous membrane's got to have two sides if it's going to hold that fluid in. You can kind of think of like a water balloon that you squish your hand in, right? There is a part that is tight up on the organ right here. And a lot of times when we're doing dissection, it's hard to even see the differences in these or to separate them out. This is called the visceral side. Over here around the heart, we can see that's the one that's tight up to the heart muscle, called the myocardium, by the way. But this is the visceral serous membrane of the heart right there. And so it's smooth, it's tough. And then we've got the part that's facing, whatever's over here, lungs, or, if this was in your digestive tract, other organs, kidneys, whatever. This is called the parietal. And so visceral, we did talk about visceral, if you remember, in the first unit. Visceral means your guts. So the visceral serous membrane is the one that's tied up to the gut organ that is protecting, and the parietal is the one away from the gut organ. And then this fluid in the middle is what it secretes, the serous fluid, which is really slippery. Okay. I didn't have that up. I should have had that up the whole time I was talking. So if you've ever gutted an animal, and if you're a hunter and you've gutted an animal and you go to take out the guts, you'll notice that it can be quite slick and slippery in there when you're taking out the intestines and the stomach and all that kind of stuff. The reason is those organs are surrounded by the serous membranes with the serous fluid in there, which is a lubricating fluid. Okay. And that's what you're feeling. And that's one thing, unfortunately, when we do get you guys back in here to start on your cat dissections, you won't get a good feeling for with our dissections because they are preserved, and that has pretty much destroyed the serous fluid's ability to really lubricate. So you're not going to quite get that same feel as if you're doing it fresh. So if you get the opportunity, and this fall is a good time to do it, if you know anybody's a hunter and they're hunting anything, deer, turkey, ducks, geese, squirrels, when they catch something, ask them if you can be there when they gut it, and maybe they'll let you gut it and teach you how to do it, and you'll be able to see the organs, see the different colors, feel how slick it is in there, feel which organs are tougher, which ones are very friable or delicate. It's a really good opportunity, and I would strongly recommend you take it. And if you do, take pictures of what you're doing, maybe label some of the organs in those pictures and send them to me, and I'll give you some extra credit for it. All right? So there are 3 types of serous membranes based on where they are and what they protect. The peritoneum, that's in your guts, okay, your abdominal cavity, surrounds your stomach, your intestines, bladder, all that kind of stuff. One of the big worries if you have a burst appendix with appendicitis is getting peritonitis or inflammation of the peritoneum, because the bacteria in the appendix will get all over the peritoneum, and then infection will spread all throughout your intestinal and stomach and abdominal contents. So peritonitis is what you're worried about if you have appendicitis that causes it to burst. That leads to peritonitis. What I said before, I feel like Porky Pig. I've been doing this for a long time this morning. And gets it infected. So that's the peritoneum around your abdominal organs. The pleura, are the serous membranes around your lungs. Okay, anything with pleura or pleural usually has to mean you're doing with lungs and breathing. And then the pericardium is the serous membrane around the heart that we were showing in the last picture. And it's pretty tough. We'll actually be able to see that one pretty well when we dissect the cats later. So there we can just see the pictures of them. You can see it is a double-walled membrane. So there's pericardium, pleural membrane, and peritoneum. All right, the last one we're going to talk about is synovial membranes. And these ones line joint cavities. Okay, we looked at in our connective tissue, we looked at the haline cartilage that is over the surface of the ends of bones, which allows, rather than having bone grinding on bone, which would be like rock on rock, which would wear it out really quick, and that's kind of what causes a lot of osteoporosis, not osteoporosis, but arthritis, is when that haline cartilage gets damaged and bone starts showing through. That's what's causing a lot of that pain. But even with the smooth haline cartilage, you'd be much better if you could have some lubricating fluid in there. And if you're going to hold lubricating fluid in the joints, you need to have a way to hold that fluid in there. And that's what the synovial membrane does. It kind of is a big old balloon around from one bone to the other bone to hold that synovial fluid, that lubricating fluid, in the joint. Okay. And they also form what we call bursa and tendon sheaths, which I'll show you on some pictures in a minute. What those do, they cushion organs moving against each other when muscles move. So not only do you have it around the joints, but also different organs and things like that. So here is a picture of a knee. This is the front of the knee, kneecap, femur, tibia, fibula. We've got some different ligaments in there. So we can see the synovial membrane here from the tibia up to the femur, holding synovial fluid in the knee joint so that these two bones don't grind on each other. We see some bursa sacs. There's one over the patella here, kind of acts like a little cushion. It's like a little like a little water bed to over your patella to protect it. There's some here. This ligament running over the end of your tibia could literally wear into your tibia, or your tibia could wear into that tendon. So you've got this little cushion here. I like to think of it like if you've ever seen a movie where they're doing mountain climbing or a rope, right? And the rope is over the edge of the cliff, and it's getting rubbed along the edge of the cliff. They take a shot at the person climbing the rope, and then they take a close up of the rope fraying, and then back to the person climbing, back to the rope fraying, back to the person climbing. Are they going to make it? Back to the rope fraying, and then they show the rope fraying, but the person managed to grab on just underneath the lip before the rope broke, and they're safe. Well, that's what this bursa is for. It's like if you put a towel or something underneath that, between that rope and that rock, that rope probably wouldn't have frayed, and they would have been just fine, and there wouldn't have been all that drama. So that's what these are for. There. Just another picture, more of a cross section, so you can see how the membrane comes from here to here, and from here to here to hold the fluid in the joint. Same thing here. We can see the hyaline cartilage in blue on the femur and on the tibia and on the patella. And then we can see the serous membrane in green. And then we got serous fluid in between here. Here we've got a couple of, we have another bursa here. So here's the bone and the tendon over the top. And you can see how the bursa, which is is filled with synovial fluid as well, keeps the bone and the tendon from rubbing against each other. Here we can see one with a synovial sheath around the tendon. So it wraps all the way around it, pretty much. And if that gets swollen, you can get carpal tunnel syndrome, right? In your wrist, is when that system there gets swollen as things are going past it. And that will do it for us on our notes on histology. I hope you learned a few things. I hope you can hang on to this for when we get to the different systems. They're all going to use some of these tissues or others, and you'll need to know how those tissues work and what they do if you're going to understand how those systems work. So thanks for joining me, guys, and we will see you soon.